Welcome crew, guys, gals, trolls, friends, fiends, trolls, and other worldly beings. I'm aboard the mothership, security tinfoil hats, buckled down tight and held on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the Rockies on Rocky Mountain High, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at Long Marker 420 in Cove, Colorado. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and we are broadcasting live from the Mountain Kite Clubhouse tonight. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you, and welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night Rockies. Thank you so much for tuning in to our podcast tonight. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you here with me this evening. If you're watching live right now, you're watching us on YouTube. If you want to listen in your free time, whether you're working it or working out, you can listen to us basically where we listen to all of your podcasts. We're basically out there everywhere. So tonight we're doing story time with me, TessaTNT, and we are getting back to our book by Stephen King called Cell. 16. They had made hot chocolate in the kitchen and they drank it in the formal parlor by the light of 2 gas lanterns. Clay thought the old man would suggest they go out to the Academy Avenue later on, trolling for more volunteers in our day's army, but he seemed satisfied with what he had. The gasoline pump at the motor pool, the head told him, drew from a 400-gallon overhead tank. All they'd have to do was pull the plug, and there were 30-gallon sprayers in the greenhouse, at least a dozen. They could load up a pickup truck with them, perhaps, and back it down one of the ramps. Wait, Clay said. Before we start talking strategy, if you have a theory about all this, sir, I'd like to hear it. Nothing so formal, the old man said. But Jordan and I have observation, we have intuition, and we have a fair amount of experience between the two of us. I'm a computer, Jordan said over his mug of hot chocolate. Clay found the child's glum assurance oddly charming. The total McNerd, been on 'em my whole life just about. Those things are rebooting, alright. They might as well have software installation. Please stand by, blinking on their foreheads. I don't understand you, Tom said. I do, Alice said. Jordan, you think the pulse really was a pulse, don't you? Everyone who heard it, they got their hard drives wiped. Well, yeah, Jordan said. It was too polite to say, well, duh. Tom looked at Alice, perplexed. Only Clay knew Tom wasn't dumb, and he didn't believe Tom was that slow. You had a computer, Alice said. I saw it in your little office. Yes, and you've installed software, right? Sure, but Tom stopped looking at Alice fixedly. She looked back. Their brains? You mean their brains? What do you think a brain is? Jordan said. A big old hard drive. Organic circuitry. No one knows how many bytes, say giga to the power of a goggleplex. An infinite of bytes. He put his hands to his ears, which were small and neatly made, right in between here. I don't believe it, Tom said, but he spoke in a small voice and there was a sick look on his face. Clay thought he did believe it, thinking back to the madness that had convulsed Boston. Clay had to admit the idea was persuasive. It was also terrible. Millions, perhaps even billions of brains all wiped clean at the same time. The way you could wipe an old-fashioned computer disk with all that. He found himself remembering pixie dark. A friend of the girl with the peppermint-colored cell phone. Who are you? What's happening? Pixie Dark cried. Who are you? Who am I? Then she had smacked herself repeatedly in the forehead with the heel of her hand, and gone running full tilt into a lamppost. Not once, but twice, smashing her expensive orthodontic work to jagged pieces. Who are you? Who am I? It hadn't been her cell phone. She had only been listening in and hadn't gotten a full dose. Play, he thought in images rather than words a good deal of the time. Now got a vivid mental picture of a computer screen filled up with those words. Who are you? Who am I? 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 And finally, at the bottom, as bleak and as inarguable as Pixie Dark's fate, system failure. Pixie Dark, as a partially wiped hard drive, was possible, but it felt like the stone truth. I majored in English, but as a young man I read a great deal of psychology, they had told him. I began with Freud, of course, everyone begins with Freud, then Jung, Adler, worked my way around the whole field from there. Lurking behind all theories of how the mind works is a greater theory, Darwin's. In Freud's vocabulary, the idea of survival is the prime directive is expressed by the concept of the id. In Jung's, by the rather grander idea of blood consciousness. Neither man, I think, ratiocinative ability were to be stripped from a human mind in a moment. What would remain would be pure and terrible. He paused, looking round for a moment. None of them said anything. The head nodded as if satisfied and resumed. Although neither the Freudians nor the Jungians come right out and say it, I strongly suggest that we may have a core. A single basic carrier wave, or, to use language with Jordan is comfortable, a single line of written code which cannot be stripped. The PD, Jordan said, the prime directive. Yes, the head agreed. A bottom, you see, we are not Homo sapiens at all. Our core is madness. The prime directive is murder. What Darwin was too polite to say, my friends, is that we came to rule the earth not because we were the smartest or even the meanest, but because we have always been the craziest, most murderous motherfuckers in the jungle. And that is what the polls exposed 5 days ago. 17. I refuse to believe that we were lunatics and murderers before we were anything else, Tom said. Christ, man, what about the Parthenon? What about Michelangelo's David? What about that plaque on the moon that says, "We came in peace for all mankind"? That plaque also has Richard Nixon's name on it, Arde said drily. A Quaker, but hardly an piece. Mr. McCourt, Tom, I have no interest in handing down an indictment of mankind. If I did, I'd point out that for every Michelangelo, there's a Marquis de Sade. For every Gandhi, an Eichmann. For every Martin Luther King, an Osama bin Laden. Leave it at this. Man has come to dominate the planet thanks to two essential traits. One is intelligence, the other has been the absolute willingness to kill anyone and anything that gets in his way. He leaned forward, surveying them with his bright eyes. Mankind's intelligence finally trumped mankind's killer instinct, and reason came to rule over mankind's immodest impulses. That too was survival. I believe the final showdown between the two may have come in October of 1963, or a handful of missiles in Cuba, but that is a discussion for another day. The fact is, most of us have sublimated the worst in us until the pulse came along and stripped away everything but that red core. Someone let the Tasmanian devil out of his cage, Alice murmured. Who? That need not concern us either, the head replied. I suspect they had no idea of what they were doing, or how much they were doing. Based upon what must have been hurried experiments over a few years, perhaps even months, they may have thought they would unleash a destructive storm of terrorism. Instead, they unleashed a tsunami of untold violence, and it's mutating. Horrible as the current days may now seem, we may later view them as a lull between one storm and the next. These days may also be our only chance to make a difference. What do you mean, mutating? Clay asked. But the head didn't answer. Instead, he turned to 12-year-old Jordan. If you please, young man. Yes, well, Jordan paused to think. Your conscious mind only uses a tiny percentage of your brain's capacity. You guys know that, right? Yes, Tom said, a bit indulgently. So I've read. Jordan nodded. Even when you add in all the autonomic functions they control, plus the subconscious stuff, dreams, think, the sex drive, all that jazz, our brains are barely ticking over. Holmes, you astound me, Tom said. Don't be a wise ass, Tom, Alice said, and Jordan gave her a decidedly starry-eyed smile. I'm not, Tom said. The kid is good. Indeed he is, the headmaster said cheerily. Jordan may have occasional problems with the King's English, but he did not get his scholarship for excelling at fiddly. He observed the boy's discomfort and gave Jordan's hair an affectionate scratch with his bony fingers. Continue, please. Well, Jordan struggled. Clay could see it, and then seemed to find his rhythm again. If your brain really was a hard drive, the can went almost empty. He saw only Alice understood this. Put it this way, the info strip would say something like 2% in use, 90% available. No one has any real idea what that 98% is for, but there's plenty of potential there. Stroke victims, for instance, they sometimes access previously dormant ideas in areas of your brains in order to walk and talk again. It's like the brains wire around the blighted area. The lights go on in a similar area of the brain, but on the other side. You study this stuff? Clay asked. It's a natural outgrowth of my interest in computers and cybernetics, Jordan said, shrugging. Also, I read a lot of cyberpunk science fiction. William Gibson, Bruce Sterling, John Shirley, Neil Stevenson? Alice asked. Jordan grinned radiantly. Neil Stevenson's a god. Back on message, the head chided, but gently. Jordan shrugged. If you wipe a computer hard drive, it can regenerate spontaneously, except maybe in a Great Bear novel? He grinned again, but this time it was quick, and Clay thought rather nervous. Part of it was Alice, who clearly knocked the kid out. People are different, but there's a huge leap between learning to walk again after a stroke and being able to power a bunch of boomboxes by telepathy, Tom said. A quantum leap. He looked around self-consciously as the word telepathy came out of his word, as if expecting them to laugh, and no one did. Yeah, but a stroke victim, even someone who has a bad one, is light years different from what happened to people who were in their cells during the pulse, Jordan replied. Me and the head and I, think that in addition to stripping people's brains all the way to that one unerasable line of code, the pulse also kicked something on, something that's probably been sitting inside all of us for millions of years, buried in that 98% of dormant hard drive. Clay's hand stole to the butt of the revolver he had picked up off the floor in Beth Nickerson's kitchen. A trigger, he said. Jordan lit up. Yeah, exactly. A mutable trigger. It never could have happened without this, like, total erasure on a grand scale, because what's emerging, what's building up in those people out there, only they're no longer people. What's building up is. It's a single organism, the head interrupted. This is what we believe. Yes, but more than just a flock, Jordan said, because what they can do with the CD players may only be the start, like a little kid learning to put his shoes on. Think about what they might be able to do in a week, or a month, or a year. You could be wrong, Tom said, but his voice was as dry as a breaking stick. He could also be right, Alice said. Oh, I'm sure he's right, the head put in. He sipped his spiked hot chocolate. Of course, I'm an old man, and my time is almost over in any case. I'll abide by any decision you make. A slight pause. The eyes flicked from Clay to Alice to Tom. As long as it's the right one, of course. Jordan said. Flocks will try to come together, and if they don't hear each other already, they will real soon. Crap, Tom said uneasily. Ghost stories. Maybe, Clay said. But here's something to think about. Right now the nights are ours. What if they decide they need less sleep or that they're not afraid of the dark? No one said anything for several moments. The wind was rising outside. Clay sipped his hot chocolate, which had never been much more than a tepid, and was now almost cold. When he looked up again, Alice had put hers aside and was holding her Nike talisman instead. I want to wipe them out, she said. The ones on the soccer field. I want to wipe them out. I don't say kill them because I think Jordan's right. And I don't want to do it for the human race. I want to do it for my mother and my dad because he's gone too. I know he is. I feel it. I want to do it for my friends Vicky and Tess. They were good friends, but they had cell phones. They never went anywhere without them. And I know what they're like now and where they're sleeping. Someplace just like that fucking soccer field. She glanced at the head, flushing. Excuse me, sir. The head waved her apology away. Can we do that? She asked him. Can we wipe them out? Charles Harday, who had been winding down his career as Dayton Academy's interim headmaster when the world ended, bared his eroded teeth in a grin. Clay would have given much to have captured with pin and brush. There was not a single ounce of pity in it. Miss Maxwell, we can try, he said. 18. At 4 o'clock the next morning, Tom McCourt sat on a picnic table between the two Dayton Academy greenhouses, which had both sustained serious damage since the pulse. His feet, now wearing the Reeboks he'd donned back in Malden, were on one of the benches, and his head lay on his arms, which rested on his knees. The wind blew his hair first one way, then the other. Alice sat across from him, with her chin propped on her hands and the rays of several flashlights striking angels and shadows across her face. The harsh light made her look pretty in spite of her obvious weariness. At her age, all light was still fluttering. The head, sitting next to her, only looked exhausted. In the closer of the two greenhouses, 2 Coleman gas lanterns floated like uneasy spirits. The Colemans converged at the near end of the greenhouse. Clay and Gordon used the door, although huge holes in the glass paneling had been opened on either side. A moment later, Clay sat down next to Tom, and Gordon resumed his usual spot next to the head. The boy smelled of gasoline and fertilizer, even more strongly of dejection. Clay dropped several sets of keys on the table amid the flashlights. As far as he was concerned, they could stay there until some archaeologist discovered them, 4 millennia from now. I'm sorry, Headmaster Harday said softly. It seemed so simple. Yeah, Clay said. It had seemed simple. Fill the greenhouse sprayers with gasoline, load the sprayers into the back of the pickup truck, drive across Tony Field, wetting down both sides as they went, toss a match, he thought, to tell Harday that George W. Bush's Iraq adventure had probably looked equally simple. Load the sprayers, toss a match, and didn't. It would have been pointlessly cruel. Tom? I asked. You okay? He had already realized that Tom didn't have great reserves of stamina. Yeah, just tired. He raised his hand and gave Clay a smile. Not used to the night shift. What do we do now? Go to bed, I guess, Clay said. It'll be on in another 40 minutes or so. The sky had already begun to lighten in the east. It's not fair, Alice said. She brushed angrily at her cheeks. It's not fair. We tried so hard. They had tried hard, but nothing had come easily. Every small and ultimately meaningless victory had been the sort of maddening struggle his mother had called a bullshit shithole. Part of Clay did want to blame the head, also himself, for not taking Harday's sprayer idea with a grain of salt. Part of him now thought that going along with an elderly English teacher planned to fire bomb a soccer field was a little like taking a knife to a gunfight. Still, Yeah, it had seemed like a good idea. Until, that was, they discovered the motorpole's gasoline storage tank was inside a locked shed. They'd spent nearly half an hour in the nearby office, scrounging by lantern light through mattingly unmarked keys on a board behind the superintendent's desk. It was Jordan who finally found the key that unlocked the shed door. Then they discovered that one would only have to pull a plug was not exactly the case. There was a cap, not a plug, and like the shed in which the tank resided, the cap was locked. Back to the office, another scourged by lantern light, finally a key that did indeed seem to fit the cap. It was Alice who pointed out that since the cap was on the bottom of the tank, assuring gravity feed in case of a power outage, they would have a flood on their hands without a hose or a siphon. They spent an hour looking for a hose that might fit and couldn't find anything that looked even close. Tom found a small funnel, which sent them all into moderate hysterics. And because none of the truck keys were marked, at least in ways non-motor pool employees could understand, locating the right set became another process of trial and error. This one went faster, at least, because there were only 8 trucks parked behind the garage. And last, the greenhouses. There they discovered only 8 sprayers, not a dozen, with a capacity of not 30 gallons each, but 10. They might be able to fill them from the gasoline storage tank, but they would be drenched in the process, and the result would be a mere 80 gallons of unusable sprayable gas. It was the idea of wiping out 1,000 phone crazies with 80 gallons of regular that had driven Tom, Alice, and the head out to the picnic bench. Clay and Jordan had hung in a while longer, looking for bigger sprayers, but they had found none. "We found a few little leaf sprayers, though," Clay said. "You know what they used to call floor guns?" "Also," Jordan said, "the big sprayers in there are all full of weed killer or plant food or something. We'd have to start by dumping them all out, and that would mean putting on masks just to make sure we didn't gas ourselves or something." "Reality bites," Alice said morosely. She looked at her baby sneaker for a moment, then tucked it away in her pocket. Jordan picked up the keys. They had matched to one of the Newton's pickups. "We could drive downtown," he said. "There's a trustworthy hardware. They must have sprayers." Tom shook his head. "It's over a mile, and the main drag's full of wrecks and abandoned vehicles. You might be able to get around some, but not all. And driving over the lawns is out of the question. The houses are just too close together. There are reasons everybody's on foot." They had seen a few people on bicycles, but not many. Even the ones equipped with lights were dangerous if ridden at any speed. "Would it be possible for a light truck to negotiate the side streets?" they had asked. Clay said, "We could explore the possibility tomorrow night, I suppose, scout out a path in advance on foot, then come back for the truck." He considered, "They'd probably have all sorts of hose in the hardware store, too." "You don't sound exactly jazzed," Alice said. Clay sighed. "It doesn't take much to block little streets. We'd end up doing a lot of donkey work, even if we got luckier than we did tonight. I just don't know. Maybe it'll look better to me after some rest." "Of course it will," they had agreed, but he sounded hollow. "To all of us." "What about the gas station across from the school?" Jordan asked without much hope. "What gas station?" Alice asked. "He's talking about the Citgo," the head replied. "Same problem, Jordan. Plenty of gasoline in the tanks under the pumps, but no power. And I doubt if they have much in the way of containers beyond a few 2 or 5 gallon gasoline cans. I really think," but he didn't say what he really thought. He broke off. "What is it, Clay?" Clay was remembering the trio ahead of them limping past that gas station, one of the men with an arm around the woman's waist. "Academy Grove Citgo," he said. "That's the name, isn't it?" "Yes. But they didn't just sell gasoline, I think." He didn't just think, he knew because of the 2 trucks parked on the side. He'd seen them and hadn't thought anything of them. Not then, he hadn't. No reason to. I don't know what you, the head began and stopped. His eyes met Clay's. His eroded teeth once more made their appearance in that singularly pitiless smile. Oh, he said. Oh, oh my, yes. Tom was looking between them with mounting perplexity. So was Alice. Jordan merely waited. Would you mind telling the rest of us what you two are communing about? Tom asked. Clay was ready to. He already saw clearly how it would work, and it was too good not to share. When the music from Tonyfield died away, it didn't click off, as it usually did when they woke up in the morning. It went in a kind of swoop, as if someone had just kicked the source down an elevator shaft. They're up early, Jordan said in a low voice. Tom grabbed Clay's forearm. It's not the same, he said. And one of those damn ghetto blasters is still playing. I can hear it, very faint. The wind was strong and Clay knew it was blowing from the direction of the soccer field because of the ripe smells that it carried. Decaying food, decaying flesh, hundreds of unwashed bodies. It also carried the ghostly sound of Lawrence Welk and his champagne music makers playing Baby Elephant Walk. Then from somewhere to the northwest, maybe 10 miles away, maybe 30, it was hard to tell how far the wind might have carried it, came a spectral, somehow moth-like moaning sound. There was silence. Silence. And then the not waking, not sleeping creatures on the Tony soccer field answered in kind. The moon was much louder, a hollow, belling ghost groan that rose toward the black and starry sky. Alice covered her mouth. The baby sneaker jutted upward from her hands. Her eyes bulged on either side of it. Jordan had thrown his arms around the head's waist and buried his face against the old man's side. Look, Clay, Tom said. He got to his feet and tottered toward the grassy aisle between the two shattered greenhouses, pointing at the sky as he went. Do you see? My God, do you see? To the northwest there were the distant groan had risen, a reddish-orange glow had bloomed on the horizon. It strengthened as he watched the wind bore that terrible sound again, and once more it was answered with a similar but much louder groan from Tony Field. Alice joined them, then the head, walking with his arm around Jordan's shoulders. What's over there? Clay asked, pointing toward the glow. It had already begun to wane again. It must be Glenn's Falls, the headmaster said, or it might be Littleton. Wherever it is, there's shrimp on the barbie, Tom said. They're burning, and our bunch knows. They heard. Or felt, Alice said. She shuddered, then straightened and bared her teeth. I hope they did. As if in answer, there was another groan from Tony Field, many voices raised as one in a cry of sympathy and perhaps shared agony. The one boombox, it was the master, Clay assumed, the one with an actual compact disc in it, continued to play. 10 minutes later, the others joined in once more. The music, that now was close to you by the carpenter, swooped up, just as it had previously swooped down. By then, Headmaster Arday, lending noticeably on his team, had led them back to Cheatham Lodge. Not long after that, the music stopped again, but this time it simply clicked off, as it had the previous morning. From far away, carried across God alone knew how many miles by the wind, came the faint pop of a gunshot. Then the world was eerily and completely silent, waiting for the dark to give place to the day. 19. As the sun began to smoke its red rays through the trees on the eastern horizon, they watched the phone crazies once again begin leaving the soccer field in close order patterns, headed for downtown Gayton and the surrounding neighborhoods. They found out as they went, headed downhill toward Academy Avenue as if nothing untoward had happened near the end of the night. But Clay didn't trust that. He thought they had better do their business at the Sitco station quickly, today, if they intended to do it at all. Going out in daylight might mean shooting some of them, but as long as they only moved en masse at the beginning and end of the day, he was willing to take that risk. They watched what Alice called the dawn of the dead from the dining room. Afterward, Tom and the head went into the kitchen. Clay found them sitting at the table in a bar of sunshine and drinking tepid coffee. Before Clay could begin explaining what he wanted to do later in the day, Jordan touched his wrist. "Some of the crazies are still there," he said, in a lower voice. "I went to school with some of them." Tom said, "I thought they'd all be shopping Kmart by now, looking for blue light specials." "You better check it out," Alice said from the doorway. "I'm not sure it's another, what would you call it, developmental step forward, but it might be. It probably is." "Sure it is," Jordan said gloomily. The fun crazies who had stayed behind, they thought it was a squad of about 100, were removing the dead from beneath the bleachers. At first, they simply carried them off into the parking lot south of the field and behind a long, low brick building. They came back empty-handed. "That building is the indoor track," they had told him. "It's also where all the sports gear is stored. There's a steep drop-off on the far side. I imagine they're throwing the bodies over the edge." "You bet," Jordan said. He sounded sick. "It's all marshy down there. They'll rot." "They were rotting anyway, Jordan," Tom said gently. "I know," he said, sounding sicker than ever, "but they'll rot even faster in the sun." Applause. "Sir?" "Yes, Jordan." "I saw Noah Chutsky from the drama reading club." The head patted the boy's shoulder. He was very pale. "Never mind." "It's hard not to," Jordan whispered. "He took my picture once, with his, you know." Then a new wrinkle. 2 dozen of the worker bees peeled off from the main group with no pause for discussion and headed for the shattered greenhouses, moving in a V shape that reminded the watchers of migrating geese. The one Jordan had identified as Noah Chutsky was among these. The rest of the body removal squad watched them go for a moment, then marched back down the ramps, 3 abreast, and resumed fishing dead bodies out from under the bleachers. 20 minutes later, the greenhouse party returned, now spread out in a single line. Some were still empty-handed, but most had acquired wheelbarrows or handcarts or of the sort used to transport large bags of lime or fertilizer. Soon, the foam crazies were using the carts and barrows to dispose of bodies, and their work moved faster. "It's a step forward, all right," Tom said. "More than one," the head nodded. "Cleaning house, using tools to do it," Clay said. "I don't like this." Jordan looked up at him, his face pale and tired and far older than his years. "Join the club," he said. They slept until 1 afternoon, then after confirming that the body detail had finished its work and gone to join the rest of the foragers, they went down to the fieldstone pillars, marking the entrance to Gayton Academy. Alice had scoffed at Clay's idea that he and Tom should do this on their own. "Never mind that Batman and Robin crap," she said. "Oh my, I always wanted to be the boy wonder," Tom said, with a trace of lisp. But when she gave him a humorless look, her sneaker, now beginning to look a bit tattered, clasped in one hand, he wilted. "Sorry." "You can go across to the gas station on your own," she said. "That much makes sense, but the rest of us will still stand on lookout on the other side." The head had suggested that Jordan should stay behind at the lodge. Before the boy could respond, and he looked ready to do so hotly, Alice asked, "How are your eyes, Jordan?" He had given her a smile, once more accompanied by the slightly starry look. "Good, fine." "And you've played video games? The ones where you shoot?" "Sure, a ton." She handed him her pistol. Clay could see him quiver slightly, like a taped tuning fork. Then their fingers touched. "If I tell you to point and shoot, or if Headmaster Arday tells you, will you do it?" "Sure." Alice had looked at Arday with a mixture of defiance and apology. "We need every hand." The head had given in, and now here they were, and there was the Academy Grove Sitco on the other side of the street, and just a little way back toward town. From here, the other slightly smaller sign was easy to read. Academy LP Gas. The The simple car standing at the pumps with its driver's door open already had a dusty, long deserted look. The gas station's big plate glass window was broken. Off to the right, parked in the shade of what had to be one of northern New England's few surviving elm trees, were two trucks shaped like giant propane bottles. Written on the side of each were the words, Academy LP Gas, and serving southern New Hampshire since 1982. There was no sign of foraging phone crazies on this part of Academy Avenue, and although most of the houses Clay could see had shoes on their front stoops, several did not. The rush of refugees seemed to be drying up. Too early to tell, he cautioned himself. Sir, Clay, what's that? Jordan asked. He was pointing to the middle of the avenue, which of course was still Route 102, although that was easy to forget on the sunny, quiet afternoon where the closest sounds were birds and the rustle of the wind in the leaves. There was something written in bright pink chalk on the asphalt, but from where they were, Clay couldn't make it out. He shook his head. Are you ready? He asked Tom. Sure, Tom said. He was trying to sound casual, but a pulse beat rapidly on the side of his unshaven throat. You Batman, me boy wonder. They trotted across the street, pistols in hand. Clay had left the Russian automatic weapon with Alice, more or less convinced it would spin her around like a top if she actually had to use it. The message, scrawled in pink chalk on the macadam, was Hashwalk equals no-foe. Does that mean anything to you? Tom asked. Clay shook his head. It didn't, and right now he didn't care. All he wanted was to get out of the middle of Academy Avenue, where he felt as exposed as an ant in a bowl of rice. It occurred to him suddenly, not for the first time, that he would sell his soul just to know that his son is okay and in a place where people weren't putting guns into the hands of children who were good at video games. It was strange. He'd think he had his priorities settled, that he was dealing with his personal deck, one card at a time, and then these thoughts would come, each as fresh and painful as an unsettled grief. Get out of here, Johnny. You don't belong here. Not your place, not your time. The propane trucks were empty and locked, but that was all right. Today their luck was running the right way. The keys were hanging on the board in the office. Below a sign reading, no towing between midnight and 6 a.m., no exceptions. A tiny propane bottle dangled from each keychain. Halfway back to the door, Tom touched Clay's shoulder. Two phone crazies walked up the middle of the street, side by side, but by no means in lockstep. One was eating Twinkies from a box of them. His face was lathered with cream crumbs and frosting. The other, a woman, was holding a coffee table-sized book out in front of her. To Clay, she looked like a choir member holding an oversized hymnal. On the front, there appeared to be a photograph of a collie jumping through a fire. Through a tire swing. The fact that the woman held the book upside down gave Clay some comfort. The vacant, blasted expressions on their faces, and the fact that they were wandering on their own, meaning midday was still a non-flocking time, gave him more. But he didn't look or like the look of that book. No, he didn't like that book at all. They wandered past the fieldstone pillars, and Clay could see Alice Jordan in the head peering out, wide-eyed. The two crazies walked over the cryptic message chalked on the street. Hashwalk equals no-foe, and the woman reached for her companion's Twinkies. The man held the box away from her. The woman cast her book aside. It landed right side up, and Clay saw it was 100 Best Love Dogs of the World, and reached again. The man slapped her face hard enough to make her filthy hair fly and sound very loud in the stillness of the day. All this time they were walking. The woman made a sound. "Ah," the man replied. It sounded to Clay like a reply. "Ee?" The woman reached for the box of Twinkies. Now they were passing the Citgo. The man punched her in the neck this time. A leaping overhand blow, and then dove a hand into his box for another treat. The woman stopped, looked at him, and a moment later the man stopped. He had pulled a bit ahead, so his back was mostly to her. Clay felt something in the sun-warmed stillness of the gas station office. No, he thought, not in the office, in me. Shortness of breath, like after you climb a flight of stairs too fast. Except maybe it was in the office too, because Tom stood on his toes and whispered in his ear, "Do you feel that?" Clay nodded and pointed at the desk. There was no wind, no discernible draft, but the papers were fluttering, and in the ashtray the ashes had begun to circle lazily like water going down a bathtub drain. There were 2 butts in there, no, 3, and the moving ashes seemed to be pushing them toward the center. The man turned toward the woman. He looked back at her. She looked at him. They looked at each other. Ray could read no expression on either face, but he could feel the hairs on his arms stirring, and he heard a faint jingling. There were the keys on the board below the no towing sign. They were stirring too, shuddering against each other, just like the tiniest bit. "Ah," said the woman. She held out her hand. "Ee," said the man. He was wearing the fading remains of a suit. On his feet were dull black shoes. 6 days ago, he might have been a middle manager, a salesman, or an apartment complex manager. Now the only real estate he cared about was his box of Twinkies. He held it to his chest, his sticky mouth working. "Ah," the woman insisted. She held out both hands instead of just one. The immemorial gesture signifying "gimme," and the keys were jingling louder. Overhead there was a bzzzt of a fluorescent light for which there was no power, flickered, and then went out again. The nozzle fell off the middle gas pump and hit the concrete island with a dead metal plunk. "Oh," the man said. His shoulders slumped, and all tension went out of him. The tension went out of the air. The keys on the board fell silent. The ashes made one final slowing circuit of their dented metal reliquary and came to a stop. He would not have known anything had happened, Clay thought, if not for the fallen nozzle out there and the little cluster of cigarette butts on the ashtray on the desk. "Ah," the woman said. She was still holding out her hands. Her companion advanced to within reach of them. She took a Twinkie in each hand and began to eat them, wrappings and all. Once more Clay was comforted, but only a little. They resumed their slow shuffle toward town, the woman pausing long enough to spit a filling kit piece of cell phone from the side of her mouth. She showed no interest in 100 best love docs of the world. "What was that?" Tom asked in a low and shaken voice when the 2 of them were almost out of sight. "I don't know, but I didn't like it," Clay said. He had the keys to the propane trucks. He handed one set to Tom. "Can you drive a standard shift?" "I learned on a standard. Can you?" Clay smiled patiently. "I'm straight, Tom. Straight guys know how to drive standards without instruction. It's instinct with us." Very funny. Tom wasn't really listening. He was looking after the departed odd couple, and that pulse in the side of his throat was going faster than ever. End of the world, open season on the queers. Why not, right? That's right. It's gonna be open season on straights too, if they get that shit under control. Come on, let's do it. He started out the door, but Tom held him back a minute. "Listen, the others may have felt that over there, or they may not have. If they didn't, maybe we should keep it to ourselves for the time being. What do you think?" Clay thought about how Jordan wouldn't let the head out of his sight, and how Alice always kept the creepy little sneakers somewhere within reach. He thought about the circles under their eyes, and then about what they were planning to do tonight. Armageddon was probably too strong of a word for it, but not by much. Whatever they were now, the phone crazies had once been human beings, and burning 1,000 of them alive was burden enough. Even thinking about it hurt his imagination. "Fine by me," he said. "Go up the hill in low gear, all right?" "Lowest one I can find," Tom said. They were walking to the big bottle-shaped trucks now. "How many gears do you think a truck like that has?" "One forward should be enough," Clay said. "Based on the way they're parked, I think we're going to have to start by finding reverse." "Fuck it," Clay said. "What good is the end of the world if you can't drive through a goddamn board fence?" And that was what they did. 21. Academy Slope was what Headmaster Arday and his one remaining pupil called the long, rolling hill that dropped from the campus to the main road. The grass was still bright green and only beginning to be littered with fallen leaves. An afternoon gave way to early evening, and Academy Slope was still empty, no sign of returning phone crazies. Alice began to pace the main hall of Cheatham Lodge, pausing in each circuit only long enough to look out the bay window of the living room. It offered a fine view of the slope, the two main lecture halls, and Tony Field. The sneaker was once more tied to her wrist. The others were in the kitchen, sipping cokes from cans. "They're not coming back," she told them at the end of one of her circuits. "They got wind of what we were planning. We're out of minds or something, and they're not coming." Two more circuits of long downstairs hall, each with a pause to look out the big living room window, and then she looked in on them again. "Or maybe it's a general migration. Did you guys ever think of that? Maybe they go south in the winter like the goddamn robins." She was gone without waiting for a reply. Up the hall and down the hall, up and down the hall. "She's like Ahab on the prod of Moby," the head remarked. "Eminem might have been a jerk, but he was right about that guy," Tom said humorously. "Beg your pardon, Tom?" the head asked. Tom waved it away. Jordan glanced at his watch. "They didn't come back last night until almost half an hour later than it is right now," he said. "I'll go tell her that if you want." "I don't think it would do any good," Clay said. "She's got to work through it, that's all." "She's pretty freaked out, isn't she, sir?" "Aren't you, Jordan?" "Yes," Jordan said in a small voice. "I'm Freak City." The next time Alice came back to the kitchen, she said, "Maybe it's best if they don't come back. I don't know if they're rebooting their brains some new way, but for sure there's some bad voodoo going on. I felt it from those two this afternoon, the woman with the book and the man with the Twinkies." She shook her head. "Bad voodoo." She plunged off on hall patrol again before anyone could reply, the sneaker swinging from her wrist. The head looked at Jordan. "Did you feel anything, son?" Jordan hesitated and said, "I felt something. The hair on my neck tried to stand up." Now the head turned its gaze to the man on the other side of the table. "What about you two? You were far closer." Alice saved them from having to answer. She ran into the kitchen, her cheeks flushed, her eyes wide, soles of her sneakers squeaking on the tiles. "They're coming," she said. 22. From the bay window, the four of them watched the phone crazies come up Academy Slope in converging lines, their long shadows making a huge pinwheel shape on the green grass as they neared what Jordan and the head called Tony Ark. The lines drew together and the pinwheel seemed to spin in the late golden sunlight even as it contracted and solidified. Alice could no longer stand, not holding the sneaker. She had torn it from her wrist and was squeezing it compulsively. "They'll see what we did and they'll turn around," she said, speaking low and rapidly. "They've gotten at least that smart. If they're picking up books again, they must have." "We'll see," Clay said. It was almost positive the phone crazies would go on to Tony Field, even if what they saw there disquieted their strange group mind. It would be dark soon and they had nowhere else to go. A fragment of a lullaby his mother used to sing him floated through his mind. Little man, you've had a busy day. I hope they go and I hope they stay, she said, lower than ever. I feel like I'm going to explode. She gave a wabble laugh. Only it's them that's supposed to explode, isn't it? Them. Tom turned to look at her and she said, I'm alright, I'm fine, so just close your mouth. All I was going to say is that it'll be what it is, he said. New age crap. You sound like my father. The picture frame king. A tear rolled down one cheek as she rubbed it impatiently away with the heel of her hand. Just calm down, Alice. Watch. I'll try, okay, I'll try. Then stop with the sneaker, Jordan said, irritably for him. That squawky sound is making me crazy. She looked down at the sneaker, as if surprised, and slipped it around her wrist on its loop again. They watched as the phone crazies converged at Coney Arc and passed beneath it with less pushing and confusion than any crowd attending the homecoming weekend soccer match could ever have equaled. Clay was sure of that. They watched as the crazies spread out again on the far side, crossing the concourse and filling down the ramps. They waited to see that steady march slow and stop, but it never did. The last stragglers, most of them hurt and helping each other along, but still walking in those close groups, were in long before the reddening sun had passed below the dormitories on the west side of the Gayton Academy campus. They had returned once more, the common pigeons to their nests or swallows to Capistrano. Not 5 minutes after the evening star became visible in the darkened sky, Dean Martin began singing, Everybody loves somebody sometime. I was worried for nothing, wasn't I? Alice said. Sometimes I'm a putz. That's what my father says. No, they had told her. All the putzes had cell phones, dear. That's why they're out there, and you're in here with us. Tom said, I wonder if Rafe's still making out okay. I wonder if Johnny is, Clay said. Johnny and Sharon. Well, on that note, boys and girls, we are going to go to our first music break. And on this music break, we have the lovely and talented Miss Me Savage with her group Antidote for Savages. And she's going to be singing Our New Reality, Your Skeleton, Let Me Be Your Home, and Be Merry in Crypto. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
Tonight shit that he brings anymore. You're mine. You're mine. Tonight. You're mine. You're mine. You're mine.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we are doing story time with me, TessaTNT, and we are reading Stephen King's book, Cell. 22. From the bay window, the four of them... Oh, actually, we're on 23. I just realized that when I started to read that first line, I do declare. 10 o'clock on that windy autumn night, under a moon now entering its last quarter, Clay and Tom stood in the band alcove at the home end of the toy soccer field. Directly in front of them was a waist-high concrete barrier that had been heavily padded on the playing field side. On their side were a few rusty music stands and a drift of litter that was ankle-deep. The wind blew the torn bags and scraps of paper in here, and here they came to rest. Behind and above them, back at the turnstiles, Alice and Jordan flanked ahead, a tall figure propped on a slender rod of beam. Debbie's voice rolled across the field in amplified waves of comic majesty. Ordinarily, she would be followed by Leanne Womack singing I Hope You Dance, then back to Lawrence Welk and his champagne music makers, but perhaps not tonight. The wind was freshening. It brought them the smell of rotting bodies from the marsh behind the indoor track building and the aroma of dirt and sweat from the living ones packed together on the field beyond the band alcove. If you can call that living, Clay thought, and flashed himself a small and bitter inside smile. Rationalization was a great human sport. Maybe the great human sport, but he would not fool himself tonight, of course. They called it living. Whatever they were, or whatever they were becoming, they called it living just as he did. What are you waiting for? Tom murmured. Nothing, Clay murmured back. Just nothing. From a holster Alice had found in the Nickerson basement, Clay drew Beth Nickerson's old-fashioned Colt 45 revolver, now once more fully loaded. Alice had offered him the automatic rifle, which, so far, they had not even test fired, and he had refused, saying that if the pistol didn't do the job, probably nothing would. I don't know why the auto wouldn't be better if it squirts 30 or 40 bullets a second, she said. You could turn those trucks into cheese graters. He had agreed that this might be so, but reminded Alice that their object tonight was not destruction per se, but ignition. Then he'd explained the highly illegal nature of the ammunition Arnie Nickerson had obtained for his wife's 45 fraggers. What had once been called dum-dum bullets for his wife's 45 fraggers. Okay, but if it doesn't work, you can still try. Sir Speed, she'd said. Unless the guys out there just, she wouldn't actually use the word attack, but had made a little walking motion with the fingers of the hand not holding the sneaker. In that case, beat feet. The wind tore a tattered strip of homecoming weekend bunting free of the scoreboard and sent it dancing above the packed sleepers. Around the field, seeming to float in the dark, were the red eyes of the boomboxes, all but one playing without benefit of CDs. The bunting struck the bumper of one of the propane trucks, flapped for several seconds, then slipped free and flew off into the night. The trucks were parked side by side, in the middle of the field, rising from the mass of packed forms like weird metal mesas. The phone crazies slept beneath them and so closely around them that some were crammed up against the wheels. Clay thought again of passenger pigeons, and the way 19th century hunters had brained them on the ground with clubs. The whole species had been wiped out by the beginning of the 20th, but of course they had only been birds with little bird brains incapable of rebooting. Clay, Tom asked low, are you sure you want to go through with this? No, Clay said. Now that he was face to face with it, there were too many unanswered questions. What they would do if it went wrong was only one of them. What they would do if it went right was another, because passenger pigeons were incapable of revenge. Those things out there, on the other hand. But I'm going to. Then do it, Tom said, because all else aside, you light up my life blows dead rats in hell. Clay raised the .45 and held his right wrist firmly with his left hand. He centered the gun sight on the tank of the truck on the left. He would fire twice into that one, and twice into the other one. They would leave one more bullet for each if necessary. If that didn't work, he could try automatic weapon that Alice had taken to calling Sir Speedy. Duck if it goes up, he told Tom. Don't worry, Tom said. His face was drawn into a grimace, anticipating the report of the gun and whatever might follow. Daddy Boone was building to a big finish. It suddenly seemed very important to play that beater. If you miss at this range, you're a monkey, he thought, and pulled the trigger. There was no chance for a second shot and no need of one. A bright red flower bloomed in the center of the tank, and by its light he saw a deep dent in the previously smooth metal surface. Hell appeared to be inside and growing. Then the flower was a river, red turning orange-white. Down! He shouted and pushed Tom's shoulder. He fell on top of the smaller man just as the night became desert noon. There was a huge whooshing roar, followed by a guttering bang that Clay felt in every bone of his body. Shrapnel shot overhead. He thought Tom screamed, but he wasn't sure because there was another of those whooshing roars, and suddenly the air was growing hot, hot, hot. He seized Tom partly by the scruff of the neck and partly by the collar of the shirt and began to drag him backward up the concrete ramp leading to the turnstiles. His eyes slitted almost completely shut against the enormous glare flowing from the center of the soccer field. Something enormous landed in the auxiliary stands to his right. He thought maybe an engine block. He was pretty sure the shattered bits and twists of metal under his feet had once been Gaten Academy music stands. Tom was screaming and his glasses were askew, but he was on his feet and he looked intact. The two of them ran up the ramp like escapees from Gomorrah. Clay could see their shadows, long and spider-thin in front of them, and realized objects were falling all around them. Arms, legs, a piece of bumper, a woman's head with the blazing hair. From behind them came a second tremendous bang, or maybe it was a third, and this time he was the one who screamed. His feet tangled and he went sprawling. The whole world was rapidly building heat and the most incredible light. He felt as if he were standing on God's personal soundstage. We didn't know what we were doing, he thought, looking at a water gun, a Trump Juniormint's box, a blue Pepsi Cola cap. We didn't have a clue, and we're going to pay with our fucking lives. Get up! That was Tom, and he thought Tom was screaming, but his voice seemed to be coming from a mile away. He felt Tom's delicate, long-fingered hands yank at his arm. Then Alice was there too. Alice was yanking on his other arm, and she was glaring in the light. He could see the sneaker dancing and bobbing from its string on her wrist. She was spattered with blood, bits of cloth, and gobbets of smoky flesh. Clay scrambled up, then went back to one knee, and Alice hauled him up again by main force. From behind them, Propane roared like a dragon, and there came Jordan, with the head tottering along right behind him. His face rose in every wrinkle running with sweat. No, Jordan, no, just get him out of the way, Tom yelled, and Jordan pulled the head aside from them, gripping the old man grimly around the waist when he tottered. A burning torso with a ring in its navel landed at Alice's feet, and she booted it off the ramp. 5 years of soccer, Clay remembered her saying. A blazing piece of shirt landed on the back of her head, and Clay swept it aside before it could set her hair on fire. At the top of the ramp, a blazing truck tire with half a sheared-off axle still attached leaned against the last row of reserved seats. If it had landed blocking their way, they might have cooked. The head almost certainly would have. As it was, they were able to slide past, holding their breath against billows of oily smoke. A moment later, they were lurching through the turnstile. Jordan on one side and the head and Clay on the other, the two of them almost carrying the old man along. Clay had his ear boxed twice by the heads of the flailing cane, but 30 seconds after passing the tire, they were standing beneath Tony Art, looking back at the huge column of fire rising above the bleachers, and center press box with identical expressions of stupefied disbelief. A blazing rag of homecoming bunting floated down to the pavement next to the main ticket booth, throwing a few sparks before coming to rest. "Did you know that would happen?" Tom asked. His face was white around the eyes, red across the forehead and cheeks. Half his mustache appeared to have been singed off. Clay could hear his voice, but it sounded distant. Everything did. It was as if his ears had been packed with cotton balls, or the shooter's plugs Beth Nickerson's husband, Arnie, had no doubt made her wear when he took her to their favorite target range, where they probably shot with their cell phones clipped to one hip and their pagers to the other. "Did you know?" Tom attempted to shake him, got nothing but a piece of his shirt, and tore it all the way down the front. "Fuck no, are you insane?" Clay's voice was beyond hoarse, beyond harsh. It sounded baked. "You think I would have stood there with a pistol if I'd known? If it hadn't been for that concrete barrier, we would have been cut in two, or vaporized." Incredibly, Tom began to grin. "I tore your shirt, Batman." Clay felt like knocking his head off, also like hugging and kissing him just because he was still alive. "I want to go back to the lodge," Jordan said. The fear in his voice was unmistakable. "By all means, let us remove to a safe distance," the head agreed. He was trembling badly, his eyes fixed on the inferno rising from the arc in the bleachers. "Thank God the wind's blowing toward Academy Slope." "Can you walk, sir?" Tom asked. "Thank you, yes. If Jordan will assist me, I'm sure I can walk as far as the lodge." "We've got them," Alice said. She was wiping splatters of gore almost absently from her face, leaving smears of blood. Her eyes were like nothing Clay had ever seen except in a few photographs and some inspired comic art from the 1950s and 60s. He remembered going to a comics convention once, only a kid himself then, and listening to Wallace Wood talk about trying to draw something called Panic Eye. Now Clay was seeing it in the face of a 15-year-old suburban schoolgirl. "Alice, come on," he said. "We have to go back to the lodge and get our shit together. We have to get out of here." As soon as the words were out of his mouth, he had to say them again, and hear if they had a ring of truth. The second time they sounded more true. They sounded scared. She might not have heard. She looked exalted, stuffed with triumph, slick with it, like a kid who has eaten too much Halloween candy on the way home. The pupils of her eyes were full of fire. Nothing could live through that. Tom gripped Clay's arm. It hurt the way a sunburn hurt. "What's wrong with you?" "I think we made a mistake," Clay said. "Is it like in the gas station?" Tom asked him. Behind his crooked spectacles, his eyes were sharp. "When the man and the woman were fighting over damn "No, I just think we made a mistake," Clay said. Actually, it was stronger than that. He knew they had made a mistake. "Come on, we have to go tonight." "If you say so, okay," Tom said. "Come on, Alice." She went with them a little way down the path toward the lodge, where they had left a pair of gas lanterns burning in the big blue window, then turned back for another look. The press box was on fire now, and the bleachers, the stars over the soccer field were gone. Even the moon was nothing but a ghost dancing a wild jig in the heat waves above the fierce gas jet. "They're dead. They're gone. They're crispy," she said. "Burn, baby, but..." That was when the cry rose, only now it wasn't coming from Glens Falls or Little, 10 miles away. It was coming from right behind them. Nor was there anything spectral or wraith-like about it. It was a quiet agony, a scream of something. A single entity, and aware, Clay was certain of it, that had awakened from deep sleep to find it was burning alive. Alice shrieked and covered her ears, her eyes bulging in firelight. "Take it back," Jordan said, grasping the head's wrist. "Sir, we have to take it back." "Too late, Jordan," Workday said. 24. Their knapsacks were a little plumper as they leaned against the front door of Cheatham Lodge an hour later. There were a couple of shirts in each one, plus bags of trail mix, juice boxes, and packets of Slim Jims, as well as batteries and spare flashlights. Clay had heard Tom and Alice into sweeping their possessions together as quickly as possible, and now he was the one who kept darting into the living room to steal looks out the big window. The gas jet over there was finally starting to burn low, but the bleachers were still blazing, and so was the press box. Tony Ark itself caught and glared in the night like a horseshoe in a smithy. Nothing that had been on that field still alive. Alice had been right about that much, surely, but twice on their return to the lodge, the head, shambling like an old drunk in spite of their best efforts to support him. They had heard those ghostly cries coming down the wind from the other flocks. Clay told himself he didn't hear anger in those cries. It was just his imagination, his guilty imagination, his murderer's imagination, his mass murderer's imagination, but he didn't really believe it, quite frankly. Or completely. It had been a mistake, but what else could they have done? He and Tom had felt their gathering power just that afternoon and had seen it, and that had been only two of them, just two. How could they have let that go on? Just let it grow. "Damned if you do, damned if you stand pat," he said under his breath and turned from the window. He didn't know how long he'd been looking at the burning stadium and resisted the urge to check his watch. It would be easy to give in to the panic rat. He was close to it now, and if he gave in, it would travel to the others quickly, starting with Alice. Alice had managed to get herself back under some sort of control, but it was thin enough to read a newspaper through. His bingo-playing mother might have said, but although a kid herself, Alice had managed to keep herself shiny side up mostly for the other kid's sake, so he wouldn't give away entirely. The other kid, Jordan. Clay hurried back into the front hall, noted there was still no fourth pack by the door, and saw Tom coming down the stairs, alone. "Where's the kid?" Clay asked. His ears had started to clear a little, but his voice still sounded too far away and like a stranger's. He had an idea that was going to continue for a while. They were supposed to be helping him put some stuff together. Corday said he brought a pack over with him from that dorm of his. "He won't come." Tom rubbed the side of his face. He looked tired, sad, distracted. With half his mustache gone, he looked ludicrous as well. I could just imagine. "What?" "Lower your voice, Clay. I don't make things, I just report it." "Then tell me what you're talking about, for Christ's sake." "He won't go without the head," he said. "You can't make me, and if you're really serious about going tonight, I believe he's right." Alice came tearing out of the kitchen. She had washed up, tied her hair back, and put on a new shirt. It hung almost to her knees, but her skin glowed with the same burn Clay felt on his own. He supposed they should count themselves lucky that they lacked hopping blisters. "Alice," he began, "I need you to exercise your womanly powers over Jordan. She steamed past as if he hadn't spoken, fell to her knees, seized her pack, and tore it open. He watched, perplexed, as she began to pull out the stuff inside. He looked at Tom and saw an expression of understanding and sympathy dawning on Tom's face. "What?" Clay asked. "What, for Christ's sake?" He had felt an all too similar exasperated annoyance toward Sharon during the last year they'd actually lived together. Had felt it often, and hated himself for having that pop up now of all times. But damn it, another complication was the last thing he needed now. He ran his hands through his hair. "What?" "Look at her wrist," Tom said. Clay looked. The dirty piece of shoestring was still there, but the sneaker was gone. He felt an absurd sinking in his stomach, or maybe it wasn't so absurd. If it mattered to Alice, he supposed it mattered, so what if it was just a sneaker? Spare t-shirt and sweatshirt had packed, Gate and Boosters clubs printed across the front, went flying. Batteries rolled, her spare flashlight hit the tile floor and the lens cover cracked. That was enough to convince Clay. This wasn't a Sharon Rydell tantrum because they were out of hazelnut coffee or chunky monkey ice cream. This was unvarnished terror. He went to Alice, knelt beside her, and took hold of her wrist. He could feel the seconds flying by, turning into minutes they should have been using to put his town behind them. But he could also feel the lightning sprint of her pulse under his fingers, and he could see her eyes. It wasn't panic of them now, but agony, and he realized she'd put everything in that sneaker: her mother and father, her friends, Beth Nickerson and her daughter, the Tony-filled inferno, everything. "It's not in here," she cried. "I thought I must have packed it, but I didn't. I can't find it anywhere." "No, honey, I know." Clay was still holding her wrist. Now he lifted the one with the shoelace around it. "Do you see?" He waited until she was sure her eyes had focused. Then he flipped the ends beyond the knot, where there had been a second knot. "It's too long now," she said. "It wasn't that long before." Clay tried to remember the last time he'd seen the sneaker. He told himself it was impossible to remember a thing like that, given all that had happened and been going on, then realized he could. Very clearly, too. It was when she'd helped Tom pull him up after the second truck had exploded. It had been dancing from its string then. She had been covered with blood, scraps of cloth, and little chunks of flesh. But the sneaker had still been on her wrist. He tried to remember if it was still there when she booted the burning torso off the ramp. He didn't think so. Maybe that was hindsight, but he didn't think so. "It came untied, honey," he said. "It came untied and fell off." "I lost it," her eyes unbelieving, the first tears. "Are you sure?" "Pretty sure, yeah." "It was my luck," she whispered, the tears spilling over. "No," Tom said, and put an arm around her. "We're your luck." She looked at him. "How do you know?" "Because you found us first," Tom said, "and we're still here." She hugged them both and stood that way for a while, the three of them, with their arms around each other in the hall, with Alice's few possessions scattered around their feet. 25. The fire spread to a lecture building the head identified as Hackery Hall. Then around 4 a.m., the wind dropped away and it spread no farther. When the sun came up, the gate and cannon stank of propane, charred wood, and a great many burnt bodies. The bright sky of a perfect New England morning in October was obscured by a rising column of gray-black smoke, and Cheatham Lodge was still occupied. In the end, it had been like dominoes. The head couldn't travel except by car. Car travel was impossible, and Jordan would not go without the head, nor was our Day able to persuade him. Alice, although resigned to the loss of her talisman, refused to go without Jordan. Tom would not go without Alice. Clay was loath to go without the two of them, although he was horrified to find these newcomers in his life seemed at least temporarily more important than his own son, and although he continued to feel certain that they would pay a high price for what they'd done on Tony Phil if they stayed in Dayton, let alone at the scene of the crime. He thought he might feel better about the lasts at daybreak, but he did not. The five of them watched and waited at the living room window. But of course, nothing came out of the smoldering wreckage, and there was no sound but the low crackle of fire, eating deep into the athletic department office's locker rooms, even as it finished off the bleachers above ground. The 1,000 or so phone crazies who had been roosting there were, as Alice had said, crispy. The smell of them was rich and stick-in-your-throat awful. Clay had vomited once and knew the others had, as well, even the head. We made a mistake, he thought again. You guys should have gone on, Jordan said. We would have been all right. We were before, weren't we, sir? Headmaster Arday ignored the question. He was studying clay. What happened yesterday when you and Tom were in the service station? I think something happened then to make you look as you do now. Oh? How do I look, sir? Like an animal that smells a trap. Did those two in the street see you? It wasn't exactly that, Clay said. He didn't love being called an animal, but couldn't deny that was what he was. Oxygen, and food in, carbon dioxide, and shit out. Pop goes the weasel. The head had begun to rub restlessly at the left side of his midsection with one big hat. Like many of his gestures, Clay thought it had an oddly theatrical quality. Not exactly phony, but meant to be seen at the back of the lecture hall. Then what exactly was it? And because protecting the others no longer seemed like an option, Clay told the head exactly what they'd seen in the office of the Sitco station. A physical struggle over a box of stale treats had suddenly turned into something else. He told about the fluttering papers, the ashes that had begun circling in the ashtray like water going down a bathtub drain, the keys jingling on the board, the nozzle that fell off the gas pump. I saw that, Jordan said, and Alice nodded. Tom mentioned feeling short of breath, and Clay agreed. They both tried to explain the sense of something powerful building in the air. Clay said it was how things felt before a thunderstorm. Tom said the air just felt fraught somehow and too heavy. Then he let her take a couple of fucking things and it all went away, Tom said. The ashes stopped spinning, the keys stopped jingling, that thundering feeling went out of the air. He looked to Clay for confirmation, and Clay nodded. Alice said, Why didn't you tell us before? Because it wouldn't have changed anything, Clay said. We were going to burn the nests, if we could, regardless. Yes, Tom said. Jordan said suddenly, You think the phone crazes are turning into psionics, don't you? Tom said, I don't know what the word means, Jordan. People who can move things around just by thinking about it, for one thing, or by accident. If their emotions get out of control, only psionic abilities like telekinesis and levitation. Levitation? Alice almost barked. Jordan paid no mind. Our only branches, the trunk of a psionic tree, is telepathy, and that's what you're afraid of, isn't it? The telepathy thing. Tom's fingers went to the place above his mouth where half of his mustache was gone and touched the reddened skin there. Well, the thought has crossed my mind. He paused, hiccupped. That might be witty, I'm not sure. Jordan ignored this as well. Say that they are. Getting to be true telepaths, I mean, and not just zombies with flocking instinct. So what? The Dayton Academy flock is dead, and they died without a clue of who lit them up, because they died in whatever passes for sleep with them. So if you're worrying that they telepathically faxed their names and descriptions to any of their buddies in the surrounding New England states, you can relax. Jordan, the head began and winced. He was still rubbing his midsection. Sir, are you alright? Yes, fetch my Zantac from the downstairs bathroom, would you, and a bottle of the Poland spring water. There's a good lad. Jordan hurried away on the errand. Not an ulcer, is it? Tom asked. No, the head replied. Stress, an old, one cannot say, friend? Acquaintance? Your heart okay? Alice asked, speaking in a low voice. I suppose, the head agreed and bared his teeth in a smile of disconcerting jollity. If the Zantac doesn't work, we need, we suppose, but so far the Zantac always has, and one doesn't care to buy trouble when so much of it is on sale. Ah, Jordan, thank you. Quite welcome, sir. The boy handed him the glass and the pill with his usual smile. I think you ought to go with them, R.A. told him after swallowing the Zantac. Sir, with all the respect, I'm telling you there's no way they could know. No way. It put a question at Tom and Clay. Tom raised his hands. Clay only shrugged. He could say that he felt right out loud, could articulate what they surely must know he felt. We made a mistake, and staying here is compounding it, but saw no point. Jordan's face was set and stubborn on top, scared to death just beneath. We're not going to persuade him, and besides, it was day again. Day was their time. He rumpled the boy's hair. If you say so, Jordan, I'm going to catch some use. Jordan looked almost sublimely relieved. That sounds like a good idea. I think I will too. I'm going to have a cup of Chicken Lodge's world's famous tepid cocoa before I come up, Tom said, and I believe I'll shave off the rest of this mustache. The wailing and lamentation here will be mine. Can I watch? Alice asked. I always wanted to watch a grown man wail and lament. 26. Clay and Tom were sharing a small bedroom on the third floor. Alice had been given the only other. While Clay was taking off his shoes, there was a perfunctory knock on the door, which the head followed without pause. 2 bright spots of color burned high upon his cheekbones. Otherwise, his face was deathly pale. Are you all right? Clay asked, standing. Is it your heart, after all? I'm glad you asked me that, the head replied. I wasn't entirely sure I planted the seed, but it seems I did. He glanced back over his shoulder into the hall and closed the door with the grip of his cane. Listen carefully, Mr. Rideout. Clay. And don't ask questions unless you feel you absolutely must. I'm going to be found dead in my bed late this afternoon or early this evening, and you will say, of course, it was my heart after all, that what we did last night must have brought it on. Do you understand? Clay nodded. He understood, and he bit back to automatic protest. It might have had a place in the old world, but it had none here. He knew why the head was proposing what he was proposing. If Jordan even suspects I may have taken my own life to free him from what he, in his boyishly admirable way, regards as a sacred obligation, he may take his own. At the very least, he would be plunged into what elders of my own childhood called black faith. Phew. He will grieve for me deeply, as it is, but that's permissible. The thought that I committed suicide to get him out of Gayton is not. Do you understand that? Yes, Clay said. Then, sir, one other day, what you're thinking of, it may not be necessary. Could be we're going to get away with this. He didn't believe it, and in any case, R.A. meant to do what he said. All the truth Clay needed was in the man's haggard face, tightly pressed lips, and gleaming eyes. Still he tried again. Wait another day. No one may come. You heard those screams, the head replied. That was rage. They'll come. Maybe, but the head raised his cane to forestall him. And if they do, and if they can read our minds as well as others, what will they read in yours, if yours is still sure to be read? Clay didn't reply, only watched the head's face. Even if they can't read minds, the head continued, what do you propose? Stay here day after day and week after week until snow flies, until I finally expire of old age? My own father lived to the age of 97. Meanwhile, you have a wife and a child. My wife and boy are either all right or they're not. I've made my peace with that. This was a line perhaps R.A. saw it in Clay's face because he smiled his unsettling smile. And do you believe your son has made peace with not knowing if his father is alive, dead, or insane, after only a week? That's a low blow, Clay said. His voice was not quite steady. Really? I didn't know we were fighting in inches. There's no referee. No one here but us chickens, as they say. Ed glanced at the closed door, then looked back at Clay again. The equation is very simple. You can't stay, and I can't go. It's best let Jordan go with you. But put you down like a horse with a broken leg. No such thing, the head interrupted. Horses do not practice euthanasia, but people do. The door opened. Tom stepped in, and with hardly a pause for the breath, the head went on. And have you ever considered commercial illustration, Clay? For books, I mean. My style is too flamboyant for most of the commercial houses, Clay said. I have done jackets for some of the small fantasy presses like Grant and Leyland. Some of the Edgar Rice Burroughs Mars books. Barstool? The head cried and waved his cane vigorously in the air. Then he rubbed his solar plexus and grimaced. Damned heartburn. Excuse me, Tom. Just came up to have a natter before lying down a bit myself. Not at all, Tom said, and wished to go out. When the sound of the head's cane had gotten a good distance down the hall, he turned to Clay and said, Is he okay? He's very pale. I think he's fine, he pointed at Tom's face. I thought you were going to shave off the other half. I decided against it with Alice hanging around, Tom said. I like her, but about certain things she can be evil. That's just paranoia. Thanks, Clay, I needed that. It's only been a week and I'm already missing my analyst. Combined with the persecution complex and delusions of grandeur, Clay swung his feet up onto one of the room's two narrow beds, but put his hands behind his head and looked at the ceiling. You wish we were out of here, don't you? Tom asked. You bet I do, he spoke in a flat, inflected monotone. That'll be all right, Clay, really. So you say, but you have a persecution complex and delusions of grandeur. That's true, Tom said, but they're balanced out by poor self-image and ego menstruation at roughly 6-week intervals. And in any case, too late now at least for today, Clay finished. That's right. There was actually a kind of peace in that. Tom said something else, but Clay only caught Jordan thinks, and then he was asleep. 27. He woke swinging, or so he thought at first, only a wild look at the other bed, where Tom was still sleeping peacefully with something. A washcloth, maybe? Folded over his eyes, convinced Clay that the scream had been inside his head. Cry of some sort might have escaped him, but if so, it hadn't been enough to wake his roommate. The room was nowhere near dark. It was mid-afternoon, but Tom had pulled the shade before corking off himself, and it was at least dim. Clay stayed where he was for a moment, lying on his back, his mouth as dry as wood shavings, his heartbeat rapid as chest, and in his ears, where it sounded like running footsteps muffled in velvet. Otherwise, the house was completely house was dead still. They might not have made the switch over from days to nights completely yet, but last night had been extraordinarily exhausting, and at this moment he heard no one stirring in the lodge. Outside, a bird called, and somewhere, quite distant, not in Dayton, he thought, a stubborn alarm kept on braying. Had he ever had a worse dream? Maybe one. A month or so after Johnny was born, Clay had dreamed he picked the baby up from the crib to change him, and Johnny's chubby little body had simply fallen apart in his hands like a badly put-together dummy. That one he could understand. Fear of fatherhood, fear of fucking up. A fear he still lived with, as Ham's headmaster Arden had seen. What was he to make of this one? Whatever it meant, he didn't want to lose it, and he knew from experience that you had to act quickly to keep that from happening. There was a desk in the room and a ballpoint pen tucked into one pocket of the jeans Clay had crumpled at the foot of the bed. He took the pin, crossed to the desk, and his bare feet sat down and opened the drawer above the knee-hole. He found what he was hoping for, a little pile of blank stationery with the heading Dayton Academy and A Young Mind is a Lamp in the Darkness on each sheet. He took one of them and placed it on the desk. The light was dim, but would serve. He clicked at the tip of the ballpoint and paused for just a moment, recalling the dream as clearly as he could. He, Tom, Alice, and Jordan had been lined up in the center of the playing field. Not a soccer field like Tony, a football field maybe. There had been some sort of skeletal construction in the background with a blinking red light on it. He had no idea what it was, but he knew the field had been full of people looking at them. People with ruined faces and ripped clothes that he recognized all too well. He and his friends had been... Had they been in cages? No, on platforms. And they were cages, all the same. Although there were no bars. Clay didn't know how that could be, but it was. He was losing the details of the dream already. They hate that. Tom was on one end of the line. A man had walked to him, a special man, and put a hand over his head. Clay didn't remember how the man could do that, since Tom, like Alice, Jordan, and Clay himself, had been on a platform, but he had, and he said, "It's Homo instincts." And the crowd, thousands of them, had roared back, "Don't touch!" in a single voice. The man had gone to Clay and repeated this. With his hand above Alice's head, the man had said, "Esa femina insana." Above Jordan, "Esa pure insanus." Each time the response had been the same, "Don't touch!" Neither the men, the hosts, the ringmaster, nor the people in the crowd had opened their mouths during this ritual. The call and response had been purely telepathic. Then, letting his right hand do all the thinking, his hand and the special corner of his brain that ran it, Clay began to stroke an image onto the paper. The entire dream had been terrible, the false accusations of it, the caughtness of it, but nothing in it had been so awful as the man who had gone to each of them, placing his open palm down, hand over their heads, like an auctioneer preparing to sell livestock at a county fair. Clay felt that if he could catch the man's image on paper, he could catch the terror. He had been a black man with a noble head and an ascetic face above a lanky, almost scrawny body. The hair was a tight cap of dark ringlets cut open on one side by an ugly triangular gouge. The shoulders were slight, the hips nearly non-existent. Below the cap of pearls, Clay quick-sketched the broad and handsome forehead, the scholar's forehead. Then he marred it with another slash and shaded it in the hanging flap of skin that obscured one eyebrow. The man's left cheek had been torn open, possibly by a bite, and the lower lip was also torn on that side, making it droop in a tired sneer. The eyes were a problem. Clay couldn't get them right. In the dream they had been both full of awareness yet somehow dead. After 2 tries, he left them and dropped the pullover before he lost that, and the kind the kids called a hoodie, red, he printed with an arrow, with white block letters across the front. It had been too big for the skinny body, and a flap of material lay over the top half of the letters, but Clay was pretty sure it said Harvard. He was starting to print that when the weeping started, soft and muffled, from somewhere below him. Well, on that note, boys and girls, we are going to go to our second music break. On this break, once again, we have the lovely and talented Miss Mia Savage with her band, Antidote for Savages, and like Trina, she does everything by herself. So, yeah, maybe if she ever goes on tour, she may have to, hire a band, but otherwise, it's her and her amazing talent. She's going to be singing Not a Phase, Bury Me in Heaven, Singing to Your Grave, and The Bottom Line. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this music break.
right now between fear and love. Just a choice right now between fear and love.
Welcome back. Welcome back, guys, and thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight on here at Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. We have been reading Mr. Stephen King's book, Sling. Yeah, still very interesting. I love his work. I have ever since I was a kid. I really liked Silver Bullet, but my favorite was Cemetery. "28. It was Jordan. Clay went once. He took one look back over his shoulder at Tom as he pulled on his jeans, but Tom hadn't moved. Out for the count, Chloe thought. He opened the door, slipped through, and closed it behind him. Alice, wearing a Gaydon Academy t-shirt as a nightgown, was sitting on the second floor, mending the boy that cradled in her arms. Jordan's face was pressed against her shoulder. She looked up at the sound of Clay's bare feet on the stairs and spoke as though Clay said something he might have regretted later. "Is it the head?" "He had a bad dream," she said. Clay said the first thing that came to him at that moment seemed vitally important. "Did you?" Her brow creased, bare-legged, with her hair pulled back in a ponytail and her face sunburned as if from a day at the beach. She looked like Jordan's 11-year-old sister. "What? No? I heard him crying in the hall. I guess I was waking up anyway and—" "Just a minute," they said. "Stay right there." He went back to his third-floor room and snatched his sketch off the desk. This time Tom's eyes sprang open. He looked around with a mixture of fright and disorientation, then fixed on Clay and relaxed. "Back to reality," he said, then, rubbing a hand over his face and getting up, "One elbow. Thank God. Jesus. What time is it?" "Tom, did you have a dream?" "A bad dream?" Tom nodded. "I think so. Yeah, I heard crying. Was that Jordan?" "Somebody called us, let's see. Yes, what did you dream? Do you remember?" "Yeah, somebody called us insane," Tom said, and Clay felt his stomach drop. "Which we probably are. The rest is gone. Why, did you?" Clay didn't wait for any more. He hurried back out and down the stairs again. Jordan looked around at him, kind of dazed timidity, when Clay sat down. There was no sign of the computer was down. If Alice looked 11 with her ponytail and sunburn, Jordan had regressed to 9. Jordan, Clay said, your dream, your nightmare. Do you remember it? It's going away now, Jordan said. They had us up on stands. They were looking at us like we were, I don't know, wild animals? Only they said that we were insane. Jordan's eyes widened. Yeah! Clay heard footfalls behind him as Tom came down the stairs. Clay didn't look around. He showed Jordan his sketch. Was this the man in charge? Jordan didn't answer. He didn't have to. He went away from the picture, grabbing Alice and turning his face against her chest. What is it? Alice asked, bewildered. She reached for the sketch, but Tom took it first. Christ, he said and handed it back. The crimson was gone, but I remember the torn cheek. And his lip, Jordan said, the words muffled against Alice's chest. The way his lip hangs down, he was the one showing us to them. To them! He shuddered. Alice rubbed his back, then crossed her hands over his shoulder blades so she could hold him more tightly. Clay put the picture in front of Alice. Ring any bells? Men of your dreams? She shook her head and started to say no before she could. There was a loud, protracted rattling and a loose series of thuds from outside the lodge's front door. Alice screamed. Jordan clenched her tighter, as if he would burrow into her, and cried out. Tom clutched at Clay's shoulder. Oh man, what the fuck? There was more rattling thunder outside the door, long and loud. Alice screamed again. Guns! Clay shouted. Guns! For a moment, they were all paralyzed there on the sunny landing, and then another. A sound like rolling bones. Tom bolted for the 3rd floor, and Clay followed him, skidding once in his stocking feet and grabbing the banister to regain his balance. Alice pushed Jordan away from her and ran for her own room, with hem of the shirt fluttering around her legs, leaving Jordan huddled against the new post, staring down the stairs and onto the front wall with huge red eyes. 29. Easy, Clay said. Let's just take this easy, okay? 3 of them stood at the foot of the stairs not 2 minutes after the first of those long, loose, rattling sounds had come from beyond the front door. Tom had the unproven Russian assault rifle they'd taken to calm Sir Speedy. Alice was holding a 9mm automatic in each hand, and Clay had Beth Nickerson's .45, which he had somehow managed to hold on to during the previous night, although he had no memory of tucking it back into his belt, where he later found it. Jordan still huddled on the landing. Up there, he couldn't see the downstairs windows, and Clay thought that was probably a good thing. The afternoon light in Cheatham Lodge was much dimmer than it should have been, and that was most definitely not a good thing. It was dimmer because there were phone phrases at every window that they could see, crowded up to the glass and peering in at them. Dozens, maybe hundreds of their strange blank faces. Most marked by the battles they had been through and the wounds they had suffered during the last in the Arctic week. Clay saw missing eyes and teeth, torn ears, bruises, burns, scorched skin, and hanging wads of blackened flesh. They were silent. There was a kind of haunted avidity about them, and that feeling was back in the air, that breathless sense of some enormous, spinning power barely held in check. I kept expecting to see the guns fly out of their hands and begin to fire on their own. At us, he thought. Now I know how the lobster fills in the tank at Harbor Seafood on 12 for Tuesday, Tom said in a small tight voice. Just take it easy, Clay repeated. Let them make the first move. But there was no first meeting. There was another of those long rattling thumps. The sound of something being offloaded on the front porch was what it sounded like to Clay, and then the creatures at the windows drew back, as if at some signal only they could hear. They did this in orderly rows. This wasn't the time of day during which they ordinarily flock, but things had changed. That seemed obvious. Clay walked to the bay window in the living room, holding the revolver at his side. Tom and Alice followed. They watched the phone crazies, who no longer seemed crazy at all to Clay, at least not in any way he understood. Retreat. Walk backward with eerie, remembered ease, each never losing the little envelope of space around him or herself. They settled to a stop between Cheatham Lodge and the smoking remains of the Tony Soccer Stadium, like some ratty-ass army battalion on a leaf-strewn parade ground. Every not quite vacant eye rested upon the headmaster's residence. "Why are their hands and feet all smudgy?" a timid voice asked. They looked around. There was Jordan. Ray himself hadn't even noticed the soot and tar on the hands of the silent hundreds out there, but before he could say so, Jordan answered with his own question. "They went to see, didn't they?" "Sure. They went to see what we did to their friends. And they're mad I can feel it. Can you feel it?" Clay didn't want to say yes, but of course he could. That heavy, charged feeling in the air, that sense of turning thunder barely contained in a net of electricity, that was rage. He thought about Pixie Light battering on Power Suit Woman's neck and the elderly lady who'd won the Battle of the Boylston Street Tea Station, and one who'd gone striding off into the Boston Common with blood dripping out of her cropped iron gray hair. The young man naked except for his sneakers, who had been jabbing a car aerial in each hand as he ran. All that rage. Do you think it had just disappeared when he started to feel it? Well, think again. "I feel it," Tom said. "Jordan, if they've got psychic powers, why don't they just make us kill ourselves or each other?" "We'll make our heads explode," Alice said. Her voice was trembling. "I saw that in an old movie once." "I don't know," Jordan said. He looked up at Clay. "Where's the Raggedy Man?" "Is that what you call him?" Clay looked down at his sketch, which he was still carrying. The torn flesh, the torn sleeve of the pullover, the baggy blue jeans. He supposed that Raggedy Man was not a bad name at all for the fellow in the Harvard hoodie. "I call him Trouble. Trouble is what I call him." Clay looked down at the sketch, which he was still carrying. The torn flesh, the torn sleeve of the pullover, the baggy blue jeans, the supposed that Raggedy Man was not a bad name at all for the fellow in the Harvard hoodie. "I call him Trouble is what I call him," Jordan said in a thin voice. He looked out again at the newcomers, 300 at least, maybe 400, recently arrived from God knew which surrounding towns, and then back at Clay. "Have you seen him?" "Other than in a bad dream, no." Tom shook his head. "To me, he's just a picture on a piece of paper," Alice said. "I didn't dream him, and I don't see anyone in hoodie out there. What were they doing on the soccer field? Do they try to identify their dead? Do you think?" She looked doubtful at this. "And isn't it still hot in there?" "It must be." "What are they waiting for?" Tom asked. "If they aren't going to charge us or make us stick kitchen knives in each other, what are they waiting for?" Clay suddenly knew what they were waiting for, and also who Jordan's Raggedy Man was. It was what Mr. Fling, his high school algebra teacher, would have called an aha moment. He turned and headed to the front hall. "Where are you going?" Tom asked. "To see what they left us," Clay said. They hurried after him. Tom caught up first, while Clay's hand was still on the doorknob. "I don't know if this is a good idea," Tom said. "Maybe not, but it's what they're waiting for, Clay said. And you know what? I think if they meant to kill us, we'd be dead already. He's probably right, Jordan said in a small, blonde voice. Clay opened the door. Chieftain Lodge's long front porch with its comfortable wicker furniture and its view of Academy slope rolling down to Academy Avenue was made for sunny autumn afternoons like this, but at that moment the ambiance was the furthest thing from Clay's mind. Standing at the front foot of the steps was an arrowhead of phone crazies. One in front, two behind him, three behind them, and then 4, 5, and 6. 21 in all. The one in front was the Raggedy Man from Clay's dream, his sketch come to life. The lettering on the front of the tattered red hoodie did indeed spell out Harvard. The torn left cheek had been pulled up and secured at the side of the nose with 2 clumsy white stitches that had torn teardrops in the indifferently mended dark flesh before holding. Yuck! There were rips where a 3rd and 4th stitch had pulled free. Clay thought the stitching might have been done with fish line. The sagging leopard gold teeth that looked as if they had been seen by a good orthodontist not long ago, when the world had been a milder place. In front of the door, burying the mat and spreading in both directions, was a heap of black, misshapen objects. It could almost have been some half-mad sculptor's idea of art. It took Clay only a moment to realize he was looking at the melted remain of the Tony Fields Flux ghetto blasters. Oh no. Then Alice shrieked. A few of the heat-warped blue boxes had fallen over when Clay opened the door and something that had been very likely been balanced on top of the pile had fallen over with them. Rocking half in and half out of the pile. She stepped forward before Clay could stop her, dropping one of the automatic pistols and grabbing the thing she had seen. It was the sneaker. She cradled it in between her breasts. Clay looked past her at Tom. Tom gazed back at him. They weren't telepathic, but in that moment they might as well have been. Now what? Tom's eyes asked. Clay turned his attention back to the Raggedy Man. He wondered if you could feel your mind being read and if his was being read right that second. He put his hands out to the Raggedy Man. The gun was still in one of them, but neither the Raggedy Man nor anyone in his squad seemed to feel threatened by it. Clay held his palms up. What do you want? The Raggedy Man smiled. There was a humor in the smile. Clay thought he could see anger in the dark brown eyes, but he thought it was a surface thing. Underneath, there was no spark at all, at least that he could discern. It was almost like watching a doll smile. The Raggedy Man cocked his head and held up a finger. Wait. From below them on Academy Avenue, as if on cue, came many screams. Screams of people in mortal agony. Accompanying them were a few guttural, predatory cries. Not many. What are you doing? Alice shouted. She stepped forward, squeezing the little sneaker convulsively in her hand. The cords in her forearm stood out strongly enough to make shadows like long, straight pencil strokes on her skin. What are you doing to the people down there? As if Clay thought there could be any doubt, she raised the hand that still held a gun. Tom grabbed it and wrestled it away from her before she could pull the trigger. She turned on him, clawed at him with her free hand. Give it back! Don't you hear that? Don't you hear? Clay pulled her away from Tom. During all of this, Jordan watched from the entryway with wide, terrified eyes, and the Raggedy Man stood at the tip of the arrow, smiling from a face where rage underlaid humor, and beneath the rage was nothing, as far as Clay could tell. Nothing at all. Safety was on anyway, Tom said after a quick glance. Thank the Lord for small favors. And Alice, do you want to get us killed? Do you think they're just gonna let us go? She cried. She cried so hard that it had become difficult to understand her. Snot hung from her nostrils in two clear streams. From below on a tree-lined avenue that ran past Dayton Academy, there were screams and shrieks. A woman cried, "No, please don't, please don't." And then her words were lost in a terrible howl of pain. "I don't know what they're going to do with us," Tom said in a voice that strove for calm, "but if they meant to kill us, they wouldn't be doing that. Look at him, Alice. What's going on down there is for our benefit." There were a few gunshots of people who tried to defend themselves, but not many. Mostly there were just screams of pain and terrible surprise, all coming from the area directly adjacent to Dayton Academy, where the flock had been born. It surely didn't last any longer than 10 minutes, but sometimes Clay thought time really was relative. It seemed like hours. 30. When the screams finally stopped, Alice stood quietly between Clay and Tom, with her head lowered. She had put both automatics on the table next to briefcases and hats inside the front door. Jordan was holding her hand, looking out at the Raggedy Man and his colleagues standing at the head of the walk. So far, the boy hadn't noticed the head's absence. Clay knew he would soon, and then the next scene of this terrible day would commence. The Raggedy Man took a step forward and made a little bow with his hands held out to either side as if to say, "At your service." Then he looked up and held a hand out toward Academy Slope and the avenue beyond. He looked at the little group clustered in the one open door behind the melted boombox sculpture as he did this. To Clay, the meaning seemed clear. "The road is yours. Go on and take it." "Maybe," he said. "In the meantime, let's be clear on one thing. I'm sure you can wipe us out if you choose to. You've obviously got the numbers, but unless you plan to hang back at Command HQ, someone else is going to be in charge of things tomorrow because I'll be personally there to make sure you're the first one to go." The Raggedy Man put his hand to his cheeks and widened his eyes. Oh dear. The others behind him were as expressionless as robots. Clay looked a moment longer, then gently closed the door. "I'm sorry," Alice said dully. "I just couldn't stand listening to them scream." "It's okay," Tom said. "No harm done, and hey, they brought back Mr. Sneaker." She looked at it. "Is this how they found out it was us? Did they smell it the way a bloodhound smells a scent?" "No," Jordan said. "He was sitting on a high-backed chair beside the umbrella stand, looking small and haggard and used up. That's just their way of saying they know you. At least, that's what I think." "Yeah," Clay said. "I bet they knew it was us even before they got here. Picked it out of a dream, or the way we picked his face out of our dreams." "I didn't," Alice began. "Because you were waking up," Tom said. "You'll be hearing from him in the fullness of time, I imagine." He paused. "If he has anything else to say, that is. I don't understand this, Clay. We did it, and they know we did it. I'm convinced of that." "Yes," Clay said. "Then why kill a bunch of innocent pilgrims when it would have been just as easy, well, almost as easy, to break in here and kill us? I mean, I understand the concept of reprisals, but I don't see the point in this." That was when Jordan slid off his chair and, looking around with an expression of suddenly blossoming worry, asked, "Where's the head?" 31. Clay caught up with Jordan, but not until the boy had made it all the way to the second-floor landing. "Hang on, Jordan," he said. "No," Jordan said. His face was whiter, shockier than ever. His hair bushed out around his head, and Clay supposed it was only because the boy needed a cut, but it looked as if it were trying to stand on end. With all the commotion, he should have been with us. He would have been with us if he was all right. His lips began to tremble. Remember the way he was rubbing himself? What if that wasn't just acid reflux stuff? Jordan paid no attention, and Clay was willing to bet he'd forgotten all about the Raggedy Man and his cohorts, at least for the time being. He yanked free of Clay's hand and went running down the corridor, yelling, "Sir! Sir!" while heads going back to the 19th century frowned down at him from the walls. Clay glanced back down the stairs. Alice was going to be no help. She was sitting at the foot of the staircase with her head bent, staring at the fucking speaker like it was the skull of Yorick, but Tom started reluctantly up the second floor. "How bad is this going to be?" he asked Clay. "Well, Jordan thinks the head would have joined us if he was alright, and I tend to think he's..." Jordan began to shriek. It was a drilling soprano sound that went through Clay's head like a spear. It was actually Tom who got moving first. Clay was rooted at the staircase and the corridor for at least 3 and perhaps as many as 7 seconds, held there by a single thought. That's not how someone sounds when they found what looks like a heart attack. The old man must have botched it somehow. Maybe he used the wrong kind of pills. He was halfway down the hall when Tom cried out in shock, "Oh my God, Jordan, don't look!" Almost as if it were one word. "Wait!" Alice called from behind him, but Clay didn't. The door to the head's little upstairs suite was open. The study with books and its now useless hot plate. The bedroom beyond with the door standing open so the light streamed through. Tom was standing in front of the desk, holding Jordan's head against his stomach. The head was seated behind his desk. His weight had rocked his swivel chair back on its pivots, and he seemed to be staring up at the ceiling with his one remaining eye. His tangled white hair hung down over the chair bank. To Clay, he looked like a concert pianist who had just played the final chord of a difficult piece. He heard Alice give a choked cry of horror, but hardly noticed. Feeling like a passenger inside his own body, Clay walked to the desk and looked at the sheet of paper that rested on the blotter. Although it was stained with blood, he could make out the words on it. The head's cursive had been fine and clear. "Old school to the end," Jordan might have said. "Alien, Geisteskrank, Insano, in El Nebayos, Vansinnig, Fau, Tamaga, Kashi, Gek, Dosining, Kuru, Gela, Mashu, Nebuni, Demir." Clay spoke nothing but English and a little high school French, but he knew well enough that this was what it meant. The Raggedy Man wanted them to go. He knew somehow that the headmaster Arday was too old and too arthritic to go with them, so he had been made to sit at his desk and write the word "fort" and "sing" in 14 different languages. And when he was done, he had been made to plunge the tip of the heavy fountain pen with which he had written into his right eye, and from there unto the clever old brain behind it. "They made him kill himself, didn't they?" Alice asked in a breaking voice. "Why him and not us? Why him and not us? What do they want?" Clay thought of the gesture and the Raggedy Man had made toward Academy Avenue, which was also New Hampshire Route 102. The film crazies, who were no longer exactly crazy, or were crazy in some brand new way, wanted them on the road again. Beyond that, he had no idea, and maybe that was good. Maybe that was all for the best. Maybe that was immersive. We are at the next chapter, which is Fading Roses. This garden's over. 1. There were half a dozen fine linen tablecloths in a cabinet at the end of the back hallway, and one of these served as Headmaster Arday's shroud. Alice volunteered to sew it shut, then collapsed in tears when either her needlework or her nerve did not prove equal to such finality. Tom took over, pulling the tablecloth taut, doubling the seam and sewing it close and quick, almost professional overhand strokes. He thought it was like watching a boxer work an invisible light bag with his right hand. "Don't make jokes," Tom said without looking up. "I appreciate what you did upstairs. I never could have done that, but I can't take a single joke right now, not even of the inoffensive Will and Grace variety. I'm barely holding myself together." "All right," Clay said. Joking was the farthest thing from his mind. As for what he had done upstairs, well, the pin had to be removed from the head's eye. No way were they going to leave that in, so Clay had taken care of it. Looking away into the corner of the room was as wretched as it felt. Wretched, it free, trying not to think about it, what he was doing or why it was stuck so fucking tight, and mostly he had succeeded in not thinking, but the pin had made a grinding sound against the bone of the old man's eye socket when it finally let go, and there had been a loose, gobbity, plopping sound as something fell from the bent tip of the pin still nipped onto the blotter. He thought he would remember those sounds forever, but he had succeeded in getting the damn thing out, and that was the important thing. Outside, nearly 1,000 phone crazies stood on the lawn, between the smoking ruins of the soccer field and Cheatham Lodge. They stood there most of the afternoon, then around 5 o'clock they flocked silently off in the direction of downtown Dayton. Clay and Tom carried the head's shrouded body down the back stairs and put it on the back porch. The 4 survivors gathered in the kitchen and ate the meal they had taken to calling breakfast as the shadows began to draw along outside. Jordan ate surprisingly well. His color was high and his speech was animated. It consisted of reminiscences of his life at Gayton Academy and the influence Headmaster Arday had had on the heart and mind of the friendless, introverted computer geek from Madison, Wisconsin. The brilliant lucidity of the boy's recollections made Clay increasingly uncomfortable, and when he caught first Alice's eye, then Tom's, he saw they felt the same. Jordan's mind was tottering, but it was hard to know what to do about that. They could hardly send him to a psychologist or a psychiatrist. At some point after full dark, Tom suggested that Jordan should rest. Jordan said he would, but not until they had buried the head. They could put him in the garden behind the lodge, he said. He told them the head had called the little vegetable patch his victory garden, although he had never told Jordan why. "That's the place," Jordan said, smiling. His cheeks now flamed with color, his eyes, deep in their blue sockets, sparkled with what could have been inspiration, good cheer, madness, or all three. Not only is the ground soft, it's a place he always liked the best. Outside, I mean, so what do you say? They're gone, they still don't come out at night, and that hasn't changed, and we can use the gas lanterns to dig by. What do you say? After consideration, Tom said, "Are there shovels?" "You bet. In the gardening shed. We don't even need to go up to the greenhouses." And Jordan actually laughed. "Let's do it," Alice said. "Let's bury him and have done with it." "And you'll rest afterwards?" They said, looking at Jordan. Sure, Jordan cried impatiently. He got up from his chair and began to pace around the room. "Come on, you guys," as if he were trying to get up a game of tag. So they dug up the grave in the head's garden behind the lodge and buried him among the beans and tomatoes. Tom and Clay lowered the shrouded form into the hole, which was about 3 feet deep. Oh no. Don't eat those vegetables. The exercise kept them warm, and only when they stopped did they notice the night had grown cold, almost frosty. The stars were brilliant overhead, but a heavy ground mist was rolling up the slope. Academy Avenue was already submerged in that rising tide of light. Only the steeply slanted roofs of the biggest old houses down there broke its surface. I wish someone knew some good poetry, Jordan said. His cheeks were redder than ever, but his eyes had receded into circular caves, and he was shivering in spite of the 2 sweaters he was wearing. His breath came out in little puffs. Dad loved poetry. He thought that stuff was the shit. He was... Jordan's voice, which had been strangely gay all night, finally broke. He was totally old school. Alice folded him against her. Jordan struggled and gave in. Tell you what, Tom said. Let's cover him up nice. Cover him against the cold, and then I'll give him some poetry. Would that be okay? Do you really know some? I really do, Tom said. You're so smart, Tom. Thank you. And Jordan smiled at him with very horrible gratitude. Filling in the grave was quick, although in the end they had to borrow some earth from the garden's nether parts to bring it up to dead level. By the time they were finished, Clay was sweating again and he could smell himself. It had been a long time between showers. Alice had tried to keep Jordan from helping, but he broke free of her and pitched in, using his bare hands to toss earth into the hole. By the time Clay finished tapping the ground with the flat of his spade, the boy was glassy-eyed with exhaustion, all but reeling on his feet like a drunk. Nevertheless, he looked at Tom. Go ahead. You promised. Clay almost expected him to add, and make it good, senor, or I will put a bullet in you, like a homicidal bandito in a Sam Peckinpah western. Tom stepped to one end of the grave. Clay thought it was the talk, but in his weariness could no longer remember. He could not even remember for sure if the head's first name had been Charles or Robert. Well, that's a big difference right there. Runners of mist curled around Tom's feet and ankles, twined among dead beanstalks. He removed his baseball cap, and Alice took off hers. Clay reached for his own and remembered he wasn't wearing one. That's right, old Jordan cried, who was smiling with understanding. Hats off to the head. He was big-headed himself, but mind taking a hat off just the same, taking it off and flinging it into the air, and Clay once more found himself fearing for the boy's sanity. Now the poem. Come on, Tom. All right, Tom said, but you have to be quiet. Show respect. Jordan laid a finger across his lips to show he understood, and Clay saw by the broken-hearted eyes above that upraised finger that the boy had not lost his mind yet. His friend, but not his mind. Clay waited curious to see how Tom would go on. He expected some frost, maybe a fragment of Shakespeare. Surely the head would have approved of Shakespeare, even if it had only been, "When shall we three meet again?" Perhaps even a little extemporaneous Tom McCourt. What he did not expect was what came from Tom's mouth in low, precisely measured lines. Do not withhold your mercy from us, O Lord. May your love and your truth always protect us, for troubles without number surround us. Our sins have overtaken us, and we cannot see. Our sins are more than the hairs of our heads, and our hearts fell within us. Be pleased, O Lord, to save us. O Lord, come quickly to help us. Alice was holding her sneaker and weeping at the foot of the grave. Her head was bowed, her sobs were quick and low. Tom pressed on, holding one hand out over the new grave. Tom extended, fingers curled in. May all who seek to take our lives as this life was taken be put to shame and confusion. May all who desire our ruin be turned back in disgrace. May those who say to us, aha, aha, be appalled at their own shame. Here lies the dead, dust of the earth. I'm sorry, Head, Jordan cried in a breaking, mumbling voice. I'm so sorry. It's not right, sir. I'm sorry you're dead. His eyes rolled up and he crumpled to the new grave. The mist stole his great white fingers over him. Clay picked him up and felt the pulse in Jordan's neck, strong and regular. Just fainted. What is it you're saying, Tom? Tom looked flustered and embarrassed. A rather faint adaptation of Psalm 40. Let's take him inside. No, Clay said. If it's not too long, finish. Yes, please, Alice said. Finish is lovely, like salve on a cut. Tom turned and faced the grave again. He seemed to gather himself, or perhaps he was only finding his place. Here lies the dead, dust of the earth, and here are we, the living, poor and needy. Lord, think of us. You are our help and our deliverer. Oh my God, do not delay. Amen. Amen, Clay and Alice said together. Let's get the kid inside, Tom said. It's fucking freezing out here. Did you learn that from the Holy Highness of the First any Church of Christ and Redeemer? Clay asked. Oh yes, Tom said. Many psalms by heart, good for extra desserts. I also learned how to beg on street corners and leaflet a whole Sears parking lot in just 20 minutes with 1,000,000 years in hell and not one drink of water. So let's put this kid to bed. I'm betting he'll sleep through until at least 4 tomorrow afternoon and wake up feeling a hell of a lot better. What if that man with the torn cheek gums and vines were still here after he told us to go? Alice asked. Clay thought that was a good question, but not one he needed to spend a lot of time mulling over. Either the Raggedy Man would give them another day's grace, or he wouldn't. As he took Jordan upstairs to his bed, Clay found he was too tired to care for one way or another. I'm gonna find ya. I'm gonna get you. Alright guys, well that is the end of our show this evening. Thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Thank you to all of our friends on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, iHeartRadio, wherever you may be listening Beyond The Omniverse tonight. I had a wonderful time, and I really can't wait to do it again. This coming weekend, we have another really good show on Saturday, and then story time or trippy TikToks. It's up to you. Email me and let me know at weareparadoxmedia@gmail.com. Don't forget, we are all in this together. Together we can make the world a bit better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media, because without you, there is no us. Until next time, nighty-night, love and light. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And please don't work too hard in this week ahead. I will see you same crazy time, same crazy place. Love you.